A mass exodus is underway from Yellowknife.
A lot of people are pretty nervous.
Mentally, I'm exhausted. Well, I think most people are.
I have a minute to stop, and somebody asked me how I'm doing. I'm like this.
1 year ago today, August 16th, 2023, a day in Yellowknife that won't be forgotten anytime soon. In a flash, the city was ordered to evacuate. Lives turned upside down, people fleeing by the thousands. The only highway out, surrounded by smoke and flames. Others stood in line for hours, waiting for help and a flight down south to safety. Good evening, I'm Joseph Ho in Whitehorse, and this is Northbeat. After the chaos of last year's evacuation, many Yellowknife residents have the same question. And that is, what if it happens again? As Sarah Kremilowski reports, some organizations are not wasting time coming up with answers.
Today, staff at Avon Seniors Community are celebrating under blue, smoke-free skies. At this time last year, they were scrambling to get more than 50 vulnerable seniors out of the territory. The party today is a way of thanking staff for their work during the evacuation and celebrating how far they've come.
Where we're a lot more confident if we have to go into that scenario, we're a heck of a lot better prepared than we were last year.
The organization has completely overhauled their emergency plan, going from a couple of pages to hundreds. There are instructions on everything from how to pack lunches for evacuation flights to medication management. Other groups in town are also working to prepare for the next emergency, like the Yellowknife Women's Society, which runs a shelter and supportive housing.
A lot of our people were just displaced. They didn't have the proper supports that they needed. We were all working like really around the clock trying to figure this out as we went, as you know, things came up. But it was a difficult situation.
Since the evacuation, they've been working on a new emergency plan.
I think like there was a lot of learnings from last year, and all the discussions and talks that happened since make me hopeful that if this was to happen again, that things would be better dealt with.
The Women's Society now has detailed evacuation plans for all of their programs, and they're preparing for other emergencies like floods. At Avon, they're working to set up evacuation drills, all part of making sure that if Yellowknifers are forced to leave again, they'll be ready. Sarah Kremilowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Wildfires are often seen as a destructive force. They burn forests, destroy homes, decimate communities, but they also breathe life into the ecological landscape. In a similar way, they have injected life into some of the Northwest Territory's creative forces, too. Think about beadwork, music, paintings. 1 year after the mass evacuation, we're looking back at how last year's wildfires have shaped art in the territory.
I was commissioned to write a choral piece, a 4-part choral piece, to premiere on Salt Spring Island by a choir named Viva Chorale. The piece that I wrote was directly influenced from the evacuation.
I'd taken my watercolors on vacation with me to document our fun trip, and then I happened to grab them for the more dramatic evacuation trip as well. And as we traveled, I was painting places that we stayed and things we were doing, or whatever, and I figured other people might be as well, so I put the call out on my own Facebook to say anybody that's doing art or writing or really anything creative that could be reproduced on paper, send it to me. I'd like to put it together into a zine.
We were staying in accommodations with Maca, and I wasn't sure how I was gonna get back into all my beading because everything was lost, and my mom gave me a little bit of supplies to start, and the only thing that was on my mind really was the fire and everything that happens.
And one of my friends was working with fires. I guess we were doing the show and we were telling him about the show, and I guess he had gone to Smith and where they had a lookout, one of those lookouts to see and he went there after the fire, which had a big burnout, and he found those melted binoculars that in those little chunks of globs of aluminum, and he picked them up and he said he could submit those to the art show. It got a lot of conversations at the art show.
In the piece, I talk about opening our minds and hearts to that connection, reminding ourselves about that connection to the land and water, how we see our brothers and sisters, you know, all the animals, the birds, the fish, the land, the water, the rocks impacted by this climate crisis, and how we are responsible for that in that relationship.
So I figured we were all experiencing something together, and I figured it might be a good idea to document that somehow.
Thinking of everything that my kids went through and us, and trying to put that into a piece of artwork was emotional.
I think I had a lot of emotions too, and there was a lot of discussion. And then I thought, you know, talking with, you know, some people like Fran and Dave, and say, we should do an art show. Let's see who's out there who wants to share work.
I find with watercolor, and like, I'm not a trained artist, I do it for fun, but it's a very mindful activity. Like, you know, I'm kind of focused on the task and I enjoy that. And I think in a stressful time, that's very healing.
But every once in a while, you look at something differently, or you feel something differently, or you reflect back and your creative process, and it comes back.
Humans are incredibly resilient, and we're incredibly smart. Change is really the only constant that we all have. And so it might not look like exactly how we're living right now, but I do like strongly believe that we can make it through this and come to a better, like, more symbiotic relationship as we have in the past.
Residents of Jasper, Alberta started returning home today. The homecoming comes more than 3 weeks after a massive wildfire tore through town. The fire leveled about a third of the community. But as Sam Sampson reports, people are not necessarily back to stay.
A few dozen vehicles lined up very early this morning at this national park gate to make that journey home. As of Friday, only residents are allowed back into Jasper. There have been bus tours to allow homeowners to see the damage, but this is the first time they can go into their houses and wander around town, a moment that comes with some anxiety.
It's been 3 weeks to try to digest what it's going to look like and how it's going to be. And like I said, I mean, I'm one of the fortunate ones that seems to still have a house. But there's a lot of people in this town that have completely lost everything. And so we're ready to come back and, you know, get our lives together, but also to help the whole community.
A wildfire at the end of July destroyed a third of the town's buildings. Fire danger and other hazards kept residents from returning, and Friday was their first chance to get up close to the destruction.
I am at my laundry, where it used to be, at least, if you could see behind me.
Yeah,
it's all a bunch of, it's a pile of rubble right now. Entering Jasper has been really emotional for me when, you know, it feels to be home, but it feels a little different.
Even though residents can come back, not everyone will stay. People with health conditions and even those who are pregnant are encouraged not to live in Jasper until the hospital is back at full capacity. And the municipality says if residents want to stay, they need to bring at least 3 days worth of supplies like food and water. There are so many things homeowners need to think about, even if their house is still standing.
That's things like putting the fridges out and taping those up and putting them to the curb. We don't want people to do that until they've chatted with their insurance companies to make sure that they're covered for any of the losses that might occur. Then after that, they're likely looking at cleaning. There'll be smoke impacts and damage.
There's no timeline for visitors to come back to Jasper. It's a major part of rebuilding and getting back to normal, especially for a community that relies so heavily on tourism. But for now, the municipality says the focus is on those who live in Jasper and helping them come to terms with this new reality. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Jasper National Park.
Yukon government officials met reporters today to answer questions about its role at the Eagle Mine. This week, a court appointed PricewaterhouseCoopers as the receiver for the mine's owner, Victoria Gold. It also appointed Parsons as the lead environmental consultant. Katrin Pilkington has more.
The Yukon government says the receivership is not permanent. At a press conference today, the government said both firms, as well as the First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun, were on site immediately following Wednesday's court order. Deputy Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources Lauren Haney says now is the time for decisive action.
This is the critical time right now and before freeze up, sort of mid-October to late October. So there's a tremendous amount of work to be done on the site.
Justice Minister Tracy Ann McPhee said that work will be done not to close and remediate the site, but to ensure that mining can carry on.
I want to be clear that the intention of this receivership is to work to bring Eagle Gold Mine site and the surrounding environment back to the state it was in prior to the failure on June the 24th as best as possible. It is not to move the mine into permanent closure or to begin reclamation work. We are not selling assets.
McPhee says the court has granted specific limited powers to PricewaterhouseCoopers. The firm will carry out the work Victoria Gold failed to do and take direction from Yukon government inspectors. Katrin Pilkington, CBC News, Whitehorse.
An NWT judge
Robson was charged with 2 counts of sexual
assaulting an underage teenager in Yellowknife. Justice Andrew Mahar delivered his verdict in Yellowknife this afternoon. CBC's Nadir Hashmi reports.
Robson was charged with 2 counts of sexual assault and 2 counts of obtaining sex from someone under 18. Justice Mahar found him not guilty of both the charges, but guilty of the lesser related offense of paying for sex. During the trial, Robson argued that he was of the belief that the underage teenager was 19 when they had sex. When Moran told him the complainant was 19, Robson believed it, and the judge found this to be credible. The judge said though he sympathizes with the complainant, he found that her appearance and behavior in the CCTV footage and RCMP videos were consistent with her being 19. The judge said the Crown's evidence got his attention, but didn't push to the conclusion that Robson didn't take adequate steps to investigate her age. Robson said he's satisfied with the verdict. He has been fined $3,900 for paying for sexual services, and he can't have contact with co-accused Alicia Moran and the complainant. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Does public transit really need more police officers? And so this is it.
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
It is now believed that Titan was destroyed.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
All of this, just single detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? How is that even possible? Well, with a little bit of help, I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang. Watch free on CBC Gem.
I'm such a fan of this show.
Listen to the podcast, Q with Tom Power.
The story itself is so unbelievable.
The industry wasn't set up for me to thrive in.
The presence I feel now is not something that I believed to be possible in the past.
So many people thought I couldn't do it. They doubted me.
I felt like I ripped my whole heart out.
I didn't realize how formative 25 to 30 would be.
I have to kind of repress my own self-doubt.
You're one of my favorite interviewers. I was pumped.
Get out of here.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is unbelievable.
The heart and soul of any city is best served on a plate.
Très bon. Merci.
I have some women to tell you about. You don't know them, but you will.
Thank you for choosing Plan B.
Tell me what I need to do to save my family.
Please enter your date of travel.
I can't do this anymore.
If you could go back, change things, would you do it?
This is the CFBC's largest attachment. Congratulations on making the cut.
I'm coming for you and everyone like you.
This job has one rule: follow orders.
People dream of seeing the world, but I'm here to eat it. I genuinely love you. I'm here to show you the 12 dishes that define the city.
Très bon. Merci.
The city of Iqaluit is expanding the cemetery in Apex. Without an expansion, the cemetery will run out of space in 2 years. The plan is to add plots that would accommodate burials for the next 10 years. The expansion would be located beside the existing cemetery. The city says the design for the first phase of the expansion has been finished.
As the city grows and there's people obviously are born and die, the folks that die, we need a place for them to be buried properly. And we're just running out of space and we need to expand.
The current site has seen problems with drainage and flooding for years. Kerr says that the city has worked to fix those issues by improving ditches and raising the cemetery's surface. Expansion plans will also address these issues. The city hopes to start the first phase of construction this year. A very old, very cherished letter has made a very special journey to Canada. It was written during the First World War by a Canadian pilot who had been captured by the Germans. He wrote it to his commanding officer, who kept it. Now the officer's grandson has brought the letter to Ottawa to show it to the pilot's daughter. CBC's Arthur White-Crummey has the story.
A famous British orchestra conductor arrives in Ottawa with a 107-year-old note in his backpack. It was addressed to his grandfather, and it came from the air.
In the First World War, there was a much more genteel custom whereby if an aircraft was shot down, the pilot, if he survived the shooting down, was allowed to write a note and send it across to his squadron commander.
In 1917, Royal Flying Corps pilot Duncan McTavish wrote such a note after German fighters shot down his plane in France. His observer was dead, he was wounded behind enemy lines, and now a prisoner. Before heading to a German POW camp, he penciled a few lines to his commander, E.L. Howard Williams.
The Germans then go across, fly across to the airfield, waggle the wings to show they're not going to attack the airfield, and the note is weighed down by a brick and it's dropped on the center of the airfield.
The story could have ended there, until Howard Williams died.
My father was going through his effects and found one of these notes. And he thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if some of his family were still alive? Wouldn't they like to hear this story?
They were, not just the family, but Duncan McTavish himself, then living in Canada. Inglis Howard Williams' father headed to Winnipeg in 1976 to show him his note. Now, Inglis Howard Williams is in Ottawa to recreate that photo with McTavish's daughter.
I actually have the note here with me now. Dear Williams, just a line to let you know that we were brought down this morning. Poor Alan was killed and I was wounded in the right foot. Give my love to everyone. McTavish.
In a senior's residence across town, Barbara Welch, the pilot's daughter, waits with her family.
How do you do? I've come 6,000 miles to see you. Have you ever seen the note?
Have you got it?
I have.
That's amazing. Think how old it is.
It's very difficult to read because he wrote it in pencil.
Okay.
This is the note your father wrote to my grandfather.
This has been pretty exciting and fun. It has. It's been fun. I wish he was alive. He'd been thrilled to know what went on, to meet Anthony and all the rest of it. He really would have. It would have made his day.
Arthur White-Crummey, CBC News, Ottawa.
A large amount of Inuit art and artifacts are currently being kept in southern Canada. That's something the Inuit Heritage Trust is hoping to change. William Beveridge is the organization's executive director. He's working to acquire pieces from the Winnipeg Art Gallery and the Museum of Nature in Gatineau, Quebec. The proposed Inuit Heritage Center in Iqaluit would help return art and artifacts to Nunavut. It would also be a place for cultural teachings.
If we had a facility here in Nunavut, we could run different programs. We're sewing, how to sew these kamiks and amautis and mitts with some very good seamstress that we have in Nunavut and some elders. They could talk about why certain stitches were done this way, or this is no longer done this way, but we can learn from that and use the techniques from before.
The Inuit Heritage Trust is a partnership between Nunavut-Tungavik, the Qikiqtani Inuit Association, the Kitikmeot Inuit Association, and the Kivalliq Inuit Association. A Whitehorse teacher says the education department is not doing enough about a school council member's homophobic comments. Tamara Boiteau teaches at Holy Family Elementary. It's one of 3 Catholic schools in the Yukon. At a June council meeting, Boiteau says a member stated that marriage is between a man and a woman and that homosexuality is a deadly sin. Boiteau says that's a clear violation of the department's sexual orientation and gender identity policy. She wrote to the department but says the member has not faced any consequences. Boiteau says she's speaking up in hopes the member will be held accountable, but also to send a message.
If you're a member of our queer community, you have allies in our schools. You are welcome, and that people are going to stand up for what is right for you and for everybody else.
Boiteau says she wants the member removed from council. In a statement, the department says it doesn't have the power to do that. The department says it has spoken to the school council about complying with policy. Boiteau says she thinks the policy is toothless without repercussions. Researchers at the University of British Columbia have created a new super black material. It absorbs almost all light, and it could help improve things like telescopes, optical devices, and consumer goods. CBC science and climate specialist Darius Madavi went to find out more.
At first glance, this may look like a regular watch, but if you look closely at the face, you'll see almost nothing, and that's what makes it so exciting. Underneath the glass is a brand new material that absorbs over 99% of all visible light. This is Nixolon, the first ultra-black wood, and researchers here at UBC are going to show us how to make it.
This black isn't like a pigment black, it's called a structural black. It's just based on that, it's based on the structural the structure of the wood. You walk through a forest and you see a bunch of tall trees, and you don't, sometimes if it's like a, like a really dense forest of all these mishmash of bushes, you don't see the light coming through. So that's what's happening.
Super black materials have a reflectance generally agreed to be below 1%. So it means 99% of all of the light within a defined wavelength range is absorbed by the material.
So hardly any visible light actually escapes.
Ultraviolet and visible light.
All right, this is our plasma reactor here, and we're going to load it in right now. So it creates like a plasma, which is kind of like a gas. So it hits that surface of the wood. It causes chemical changes, but also plasma etching. It removes the surface of the wood. Once we're done, we release the air, and then once the air is back to the room pressure, the door will open, and we'll open it right here. Okay. And then this is when I take the sample out.
Oh, smelly.
Yes, so this is what it looks like.
Wow.
There is actually a white layer on the, and that's like the fragments of the plasma etching. This is when we go into the room hood, and we use air to clean the surface out a bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the accidental discovery?
Well, the accidental discovery is interesting. We started off this work some years ago hoping to use high-energy plasmas to literally machine the wood surface to improve the water resistance of the surface. And then I said to Kenny, my graduate student, who's done all the work, we should look at different surfaces of wood. Normally you use a surface like this, which is the side grain, but I said, why don't we look at some end grain material? So this is the direction in which the water flows in the tree.
Right.
And so Kenny did those experiments and brought a sample like this into my office, and I said, wow, that's black. In fact, that's super black.
So what sets this apart from other ultra black materials?
It's made from sustainable material. So one basswood tree could produce 200,000 watch faces, or close to 1 million gemstones. No mining involved, just a natural material, easy to treat, cheap. Darius, we're shining a cell phone light through this Nixolon gemstone, and you can see the wood structure there. So you can see the pores that conduct the water in the tree. You can see the growth ring. We came up with this name. It's a mixture. Nyx is the Greek goddess of darkness, and Xylon is the Greek name for wood. So we combined them to create the name Nixolon. We were the first people to make a super black material from wood.
All of these are so cool. Thank you so much for showing us. But one last question. When can I get this one in the store?
Well, Darius, you're top of the waiting list.
Oh, thank you.
So as soon as we make another one.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. Tonight, we leave you with a look at the Aukpik Jam Festival. It's the largest festival in Nunavik and features music from across the Arctic, including Greenland. I'm Joseph Ho. Thank you for watching. Good night from Whitehorse.
Saya lari, and now peso matao man, and now peso kamayo left man.
Square that we can't do it. And then everybody's gonna know who's the best. We're not popular, famous. A young man never thought it had a fan. People didn't give a damn to love you, to shake your hand. They want to see. Avatane Ishigadu Qamati Qavanu Bithunga